aggressive potential from Tansoku. But the hybrid hunter builds, they're not quite the same as just the straight up tempo versions with Master's Call, and they have like Timberwolves and all sorts of nonsense in there. They rely a lot on Spellstone to get a big portion of the job done. A handful of secrets early on for Tansoku is one of the draws I think that he can get together that doesn't really do anything to Jinsoo's side. And here, even with Tansoku's draw, Animal Companion, Flanking Strike, and left needing a little bit of help if he's going to make some progress here.
Yeah. We saw Jinsoo, previous series, I believe, that we cast, he held on to a Librarian in a very similar situation as this because he wanted to use it as a Defile activator, but the big difference was that he was staring at Defile in his hand at that point, and now you can see the rarely seen turn 1 rope since the days of Life Coach leaving Hearthstone. Jinsoo really deep on the tank and whether he wants to play that Kobold Librarian, and decides in the end he's going to hold on to it yet again.
Yeah, I do think I like holding on to it, and this is like a sort of a discovery moment for me where I have just pretty much played this card automatically on turn 1, especially if I
Spellstone, right? Yeah, it's so appealing.
But with having Prince Tal'Darim be the only 3 cost card, with you not being able to ever really play Mountain Giant on turn 3, and with Doomsayer Defile is the only other cards that'll fit into that spot, I think it makes a lot of sense to just go ahead and hang on to it and wait. Because on turn 3, how often are you going to Prince Tal'Darim a minion? It's going to happen sometimes, but it's not going to happen too often. So in this spot, you get the life tap, you get a Kobold Librarian here. If you happen to found a Defile and it worked out, good. If you found another Spellstone, you get to bump that up too.
Yep.
I think this is a line of play I was not familiar with until this tournament.
Animal Companion number 2.
To my side.
Oh,
beefy board.
Where's your huffer?
Yeah.
It's 2 sleepy Mishas, but they'll do for now. They're definitely continuing to ramp up the damage. Jinsoo does have a couple of roadblocks now. He has 1 buff on that Spellstone, of course, because of the Kobold he played previous turn. And Corpse Taker can be jammed down in the way as well.
Yeah, this is the worry I've had for Jinsoo as well. It's just, early, well-statted minions are a problem for Cube Warlock. Both of these Mishas outside of Hellfire range. The Corpse Taker threatening to get punished by, just the links that's sitting in Tansoku's hand that Jinsoo knows about. The Mountain Giants threaten to just get pushed through and too much damage falling to Jinsoo's side. Like, everything is falling apart, and it's turn 4.
I think the good news for the Corpse Taker is that it's a 4-mana turn and not 5. Like, Links and Flanking Strike, if that was a possibility on the follow-up turn, that might just be lights out, because both these Mishas connecting face again, even with the one-off heal from the lifesteal, is just not going to be good enough.
Yeah, I think, another issue to be looking at is, how does Jinsoo actually even get out of that? It should be a 4-1 and a 4-4 left over. Like, in one of the best case circumstances you're going to face.
Right.
And that's if Tansoku doesn't Flanking Strike. I think Flanking Strike and attack is a very real play.
I think it is too. Yep.
I think you take everything into account.
Whoa.
I think Mountain Giant's correct, because I think it's Mountain Giant use the Spellstone to race. This is what you do versus Odd Rogue. Doesn't work out very well, but sometimes it does. When it works.
That was going to be my follow-up question. This is what I do versus Odd Rogue. And your win rate is?
Well, it's about 40%, man.
Okay,
I'll
all right.
take
Yeah, take it.
You got the Giant, slap it down, then blow some stuff up. Try to hit him.
You want to just Flanking Strike that thing? Get a 3-3?
I'm looking very much at hero power. Jinsoo's down to 9, and you have a kill command in hand. Now, the question for me is the beasts on the side of this. I think I'm a big fan of the Dire Mole and at least 1 Lynx in this spot. Maybe it's double. Double Lynx seems a bit weird to me because of the way that Defile's going to interact.
Yeah, I was just thinking of Defile implications for playing a 1-3 and a 1-1, and I don't think there really are any severe ones. Jinsoo would need a 2 to bridge that gap, and 2 is not a number that the Cube Lock really does in terms of being able to play minions from their own hand to then Defile away.
Yeah, I think it's just the full Monty.
Yeah, I like it.
When in doubt, play more stuff.
I mean, you say play Giant and race, but you can't race when 2 of your opponent's most threatening minions have Taunt. Like, that just doesn't work.
It's not yet.
Not yet. Hold on.
So many.
Let me just stabilize for about 6 turns, and then I'll raise.
This is a big removal on board for Jinsoo. I mean, he gets to wipe out his potential to wipe out both Mishas and go back up to 14 here, and you still have an 8-4 in play.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons that Tansoku plays for the tempo in this spot, is to, chip away a little bit more damage and perhaps get Flanking Strike in.
This is why I wondered about the flanking strike on the previous turn, because it felt like this would be like this turn 5, would be the turn where you ended up trading the giant. So by flanking striking on the previous turn, you develop 1 extra power, have the giant be at 1 health here in the same situation, and you can just play your links out with a nice curve on the following turn.
Something else to consider is that Tansoku saw that Jinsoo held on to Kobold Librarian and didn't play it till turn 3. Like at that point, you know, it becomes a little bit more clear to me that Jinsoo is looking specifically for Spellstone, and it's more likely that it's buffed up in that situation because of the fact that it was held.
Okay.
So, you know, playing to your opponent having specifically Spellstone in hand might have just been a better option. And now I'm seeing Corpse Taker. But Jinsoo's got to do something to fend off life total, or he's just dead.
This could be Hellfire Doomsayer turn as well.
He's at 9, you drop to 7. That's so threatening, the kill command.
If you go to 9, you're chilling at 9. 9's plenty.
Well, your opponent untaps the hero power to you, and then what do you do? Like, you just have nothing in hand that heals.
You have a Dark Pact.
You just gotta play minion for that.
Living the dream.
Sort of heal package, or Jinsoo's going to say, you know what, I just can't beat kill command anyway. Which I think that accepting that you can't defeat kill command, that's a very reasonable option at this stage.
All right. Crazy left field ideas that occur to me. No, it's nonsense. It's too left field. I've already talked myself out of it.
I don't even know what it was.
Yeah, and you never will.
Let this moment be known that Sottle had the dumbest thought that he's ever had.
Everyone has dumb ideas. The key is just not verbalizing.
Well, there are no dumb ideas, just dumb people. We established this with Raven.
Raven has a lot of dumb ideas. Oh, wait, I see what you're saying. Right, yeah, no, that makes sense. Too harsh, he says. Who are you talking to?
That's the biggest grin on his face I've ever seen. Well, the jig is up now. Tansoku has played the hand very face up.
I'll put my cards on the table as well. I started this turn thinking Tansoku had 7 mana, so I was thinking about just committing the Tundra Rhino for charge damage, which would actually play around small amounts of healing. But because he was only on 6, you'd have to skip the hero power to do that, which just made it complete nonsense.
So this looks weird, but Jinsoo's actually using the least valuable card in hand to get this done. The intent is Corpse Taker with Prince Taldaram on the following turn. I'm staring at 4 damage, and it's going to pretty much leave him in the same scenario for Jinsoo, that is.
Yeah.
And this is 4 damage a number of ways.
Yeah, I want to see the Hyena come down instead of the hero power, I think.
Just for development's sake?
Yep.
If your opponent has another Spellstone, why not?
Right.
Get something out of it.
Right. If it's a 3 attack, if it's a 3 damage Spellstone, then, you know, you're getting a whole extra minion surviving on the board that way. Oh, so sorry, if it's a 5 damage Spellstone.
So Jinsoo's like, gotta draw Ziliax in this spot then?
It looks that way, yeah. Yeah, it seems right. Because since that first Spellstone was used, I believe the Hellfire has been cast, so a second Spellstone that's in hand would be at 5 right now. So this way you punish your opponent for Spellstoning your 5 attack Tundra Rhino, your 5 house Tundra Rhino.
That's game 1 over to Tansoku. Pretty straightforward game as far as the, you know, the way the matchup pans out is concerned. Tansoku just had good early minions. Jinsoo didn't have good early beats.
Yep, and pretty major breakpoints in that matchup, I think, but the biggest one situation where if you qualify for championships and you're not one of the players that's already qualified for Worlds, then you're almost auto through at that point because there's potentially so many of them there, and that they don't reward skill, they don't reward hard work, they don't reward dedication. Well, tell that to the ever-growing list of players that keep making it back to the end stages of year-long tour events over and over again. And then shut up.
I'm not going to tell that to him.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not going to do it. Cloning Priest versus the Q block from Jinsoo. And this is a matchup that...
deep breath, inhale.
It's not favored for Jinsoo, to put it kindly. Although there are some variations where it works out very well. And as Sottle has been talking about, pretty passionately throughout the last few rounds, Jinsoo's been drawing a lot of Skull of the Minari.
Yeah. Tell me more. I speak fluent Admirable right now, so the first threat check comes out from Jinsoo. It's the Mountain Giant that comes down, and the check is answered with the Shadow Word Death. They don't always have it. It's very, very light on spot removal, is Cloning Priest. Sometimes even omitting Shadow Word Pains and Deaths entirely. And so Tansoku can count himself quite fortunate to be able to jam that death straight away, but you saw him just kind of, brush his hair back in frustration as the skull comes down, because it just complicates your game plan so much. Q-Block is just a different deck when they have that skull in play.
It definitely is, and at this point with the skull, being active and Jinsoo having some real pressure here, I think you're looking at some turns from Tansoku that are going to get quite uncomfortable. Now, I'd say one of the big benefits is that the cloning gallery is starting to become quite strong right now. 3 of the minions already gone from the 10 minion count deck for Tansoku. And that means that right now, just one Mind Blast is a 10 damage hit from back if cloning gallery gets drawn. And that to me is a really big deal, because Velen's about to get into the pool.
Yep.
But the damage is really building up behind this with Jinsoo.
Yeah, and it also, that Mind Blast becomes 10 damage just off Eternal Servitude now as well, and that leaves plenty of mana spare to be able to throw out more spells behind that as well.
Yeah.
This is just kind of the luxury that Cloning Priest does have of just, well, I'm not really under too much pressure currently. I just play my Velen and say go. And if you as my opponent does not have a transform effect, there's not really a scenario you can create that I'm unhappy with. Either you leave my Velen alive, then I have a Velen, or you kill it off and it becomes cheaper to replay than it was the first time.
Yeah, I think Jinsoo needs to really consider the ignore this Velen and try to kill Tansoku plan. And that's a very tough thing to do, because when Velen's in play, Spirit Lash becomes big. The threat of damage is very real, so on and so forth. And given that the Kobold is drawn, that plan does change a bit with the Spellstone.
Yeah,
tempo.
I think this Spellstone's just too juicy.
Yeah.
Spellstone and a Divine Shield to kill a Prophet Velen? Yeah. Sign me up.
Well, that Spellstone was 3. I was going to ignore the Velen because of that, but when you can bump it up to 5, you just got to take good plays when they arrive. And now it's
Agreed.
A Radiant gets removed from the pool, so that's another talking point to that. Tansoku, this Scream was so important, and this is one of the reasons I want to leave the Velen alive too, is because your opponent cannot Psychic Scream while their Velen's in play. They just can't do that.
See, I have this internal struggle right now. I really don't want to Scream this turn. I want to play Lich King really badly, but the difference maker is that there is just a live Doomguard on the board, and you cannot really mess around leaving live Doomguards hanging around, because then your opponent's deck does all of its most explosive things. We see Jinsoo still has coin in hand, so for example, leaving that Doomguard, Umbra Coin Cube.
Oh, you're dead.
Yeah, good night. Even if you can then Psychic Scream that away, you've taken so much extra damage in the meantime that then you're looking at potentially even Blood Reaver Gul'dan coming through for lethal with more Doomguards later on. But stretching value out of that Psychic Scream was huge, because the Skull is there, and the Skull is going to refill Jinsoo's board so rapidly and so consistently, especially if you Psychic Scream more minions back into his deck, that you really need to stretch out the value of those cards like Psychic Scream and tap the Doomguard back into hand. Tansoku's going to find himself right back in a similar position on the previous turn, but now Holy Smite is added to the hand of damage.
17 with Eternal Servitude. That's, I'm sorry, it's 14 damage. My head had just applied Malagos math. Apologies.
It's fine.
I wonder.
I just keep visualizing what the board would look like if Jinsoo had actually left the Velen in play. And there is a worry to leaving up those minions. There is a copy of Vivid Nightmare in Tansoku's deck, so when you leave up one of the big make your damage spell things even bigger minions, the threat of just copying it and blowing you out is a very real thing. However, that threat's going to be there quite often.
Death Coil is a game-changing outcome here, but he doesn't get it. He gets the Frostmourne. Doomguard popping right out from the right-hand side of the hand will be not what Tansoku wants to see.
19 available for Jinsoo's turn. Wait a minute, there's a Doomsayer left in the deck, so it could be Possessed Lackey, Hellfire. And if you stack a Doom
there's a Doom
that,
Guard left in the deck.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Doom Guard left in the deck. So if you Possess Lackey, Hellfire, a Doom Guard pull is actually lethal.
Is it?
Yeah, that'd be 18, 19, 20, 21, 24 damage. So right now, just Jinsoo's got 16 in play. You add a Doom Guard to that, it'd be 21. The Hellfire deals 3 damage. Oh, there's Lich King in the way. Oh my gosh, I'm so stupid.
Honestly, I had the most confused look on my face for such a long time.
I am the dumbest human on the planet. How did I just miss that?
It's so unhelpful because I asked you to clarify and you just rapid fired off like 16 different numbers as if I was supposed to follow that. What is this man thinking?
I don't know. He's just talking nonsense.
You must attack the minion with Taunt, Admirable.
Unity. Precision.
Wow. So Doom Guard in the pool for that. I'm going to try to say something smart here.
Okay. Ooh. Needed more burn off the top. Not another spell damage, dude. Chances that the giant dies to mass hysteria next to 0 without adding in that Holy Smite as well, which then takes away a huge chunk of your win condition. You can see why I really wanted to hold on to that Psychic Scream for as long as possible, right? I don't blame Tansoku for his play, but it's looking like he's going to have to bail out here. Mali Lash will be a full heal.
Well, this also is the full heal into you have a Spellstone with...
Correct.
Job's done.
4 different minions dead?
It's currently Lich King, Gilded Gargoyle, Velen. This will add Mali to it. But the Mali Velen res now only gives him 20 off that single copy of Mind Blast. Oh no, he still kept hold on to the Holy Smite as well. So yeah, he'll be wrapping a ton of damage if he's able to hit those 2 spell damage minions off the res.
Jinsoo has a really interesting spot here. It's 5 with Doomguard, Dark Pact Coin, Blood River Gul'dan. Creates 2 more Doom Guards, so it's 15 plus 8 plus 3. 26.
That is a cute play.
I told you I was going to try to say something smart.
Wait, has the Doom Guard died previously to this? Didn't it just get shuffled?
Doom Guard just died, didn't it? To the... Am I crazy here? To the Lich King, right? Taps. I imagine Jinsoo had to be looking for Cube in that spot. I'm like...
Seems the most likely, yeah.
I'm fairly surprised.
They'll serve me
Ooh.
Yeah, no demon for that.
All right. Tansoku has lethal outs right now if he wants to go for them.
With the double Radiant?
Radiance can come down. Gonna go for it. That's 20. That's lethal. He does get the double spell damage rip. Mind Blast, Holy Smite, and that is going to be a 2-0 lead for Tansoku. Jinsoo pulls the face of all of my co-casters while they're watching any game of Clone Priest, whereas Tansoku pumps his fists in the air like a deck connoisseur based on his triple upgraded Spellstone.
Well, it's a definite uphill battle for Jinsoo at this point. Even Paladin, I think, is a heck of a deck versus a lot of what Jinsoo's brought. However, I do think that even Paladin can struggle if it does not have the Corpse Taker draws versus what Jinsoo has. I think that, to me, is one of the biggest factors that Tansoku is going to be looking for. It's either some early game pressure with the big Avenging Wrath follow-ups later in the game,
right,
or it's going to be about Corpse Taker.
Sorry, I'm looking very perturbed at the screen right now, trying to work out whether I like this hand or not as the Evenlock player. It's just
Paladin, you mean?
Sorry, yes, the Even Paladin
Warlock.
Yeah, the new Even Warlock. Yeah, bootleg Even Warlock player. I mean, 1 minion, if it lives into Coin Kings, Kings kill you, is looking fairly promising, honestly, from where I stand. Not even standing. What am I talking about? Clearly sit down. Could not be more clearly sitting down. Yeah, there could very well be a Coin Kings into Kings in Jinsoo's future here.
I can't imagine why that wouldn't be happening. to be perfectly honest. I am struggling to find a reason to not coin kings. This is the best card versus Cube Warlock, in my opinion.
I've decided I like that hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you like charging Mountain Giant style plays? Okay.
I sure
Good
do.
to know.
Give Mountain Giant charge.
Pretty, decent stop here for Jinsoo, though. The Corpse Taker just absorbs a lot of damage, really.
Yeah.
And that is a really big factor for him to get to a winning position. This matchup, it goes with
Whoa!
Mountain Giant. So, are we once again in the situation where Jinsoo feels that Mountain Giant racing is the way to go?
Dude, I want to go Mountain Giant racing immediately. You're just riding the backs of Mountain Giants.
Well, you may have plenty of time to do that. I think Jinsoo's in a lot of trouble.
I think Jinsoo's real dead. I think he's going to play a taunt and then get Spellbreakered. No, he isn't. Let me fix my face. He's going to recognize that eventuality. Yeah.
This is bad news.
Hey, it's a heads-up play for Jinsoo to keep himself alive, though.
Alive, I think, is like a relative term.
All right,
now.
it's a heads-up play for Jinsoo to keep himself on life support. Okay, there is still power running to the machine.
Okay.
No one's pulled the plug. He is still technically and legally alive. The DNR has not been signed.
Yeah, that's all you. I'll let you handle that one. Jinsoo is in trub. That's the technical term for it.
Trub.
Yeah.
At what point exactly does trouble elevate to trub?
Well, if Jinsoo still had a Defile left, or perhaps a minion in play, or, 5 or so more health, you're in trouble.
Okay.
But when every single board for the rest of the game threatens lethal, that is trub.
Gotcha. I have to be clear. I'm trying to expand my admirable vernacular. I've dropped Huge Draw in here today. I've dropped Threat Check in here. I even dropped Egyptian God card earlier. You got to give me that one. That was pretty good. But trub. That's not a level I've reached quite yet. And the Nathan, that's admirable Zamora lexicon.
Trub does not happen very often. That's the thing. It's quite a rare circumstance for it to happen this early on. And is that just it? 5? It's not quite just it. Avenging Wrath, can it ever end here? Yes, I think it very much does.
Yes, it can, yeah.
3, 4, 5, and then it hits 3 to face. That's game.
Yep.
Tansoku is really going to count this about 17 total times, I think.
There's no eventuality where it doesn't work, right? Like, even if it goes 4 to face and then 4 on the minion, but the Corpse Taker lives with 1 health. Yeah, no, that would not be lethal. There are outcomes where it doesn't kill him. There are outcomes where it doesn't kill him.
Good point. So is that just a case where you hold on to the Avenging Wrath equality, you just wait then?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
He's in such a favored position from this spot where I don't think he has to take the risk.
Is this even a trade? Tansoku's instinct was to point a trade.
Meh. Face.
That's definitely what I'm thinking right now. That lone copy of Spellbreaker is doing some work.
Makes Consecration lethal off the top. No, I mean, the only way you'd need Consecration to be lethal is if your opponent went Lackey Dark Pact, and then they will have Dark Pacted, so the Consecration wouldn't be lethal anyway. I think the trade's reasonable, all things considered. Secret is auto defense, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So you would go to 8. I think Jinsoo's going to be another shut your eyes spot here. He's got to worry about eye for an eye too.
Yeah.
You just like poke face. You're like, wow, that'll do it.
You've got to ignore a lot of cards here in Jinsoo's spot. Shut your eyes, pretend they don't exist, say your prayers, eat your vitamins.
This will be a massive.
Shut the eyes indeed. Tansoku can't help but celebrate. 3-0 victory over Jinsoo in this one. Take your pick of how you'd like to do it.
Top deck, yes, get him.
It's been a long road for Jinsoo. I think he's played fantastically, but that has come to an end here as he's fallen just short of that championship berth. But Tansoku, 3-0, big fashion.
Yeah, we've talked about it before. Tansoku Glory being in the elimination match is disappointing to me. Some of the other names, Tyler, Coco Sasa, names that we've seen. Freaking Gigglehead.
That's right, man.
Control Priest, Cube Paladin, Death Rattle Hunter, Cube Warlock. That's
Being able to play those multiple formats, I think it just gives you a better understanding of Hearthstone in general. And that's why Jinsoo's a very scary player. And also, he's not afraid to do things that are a little bit weird. And I respect that in a player. So does Admirable, who picked him as his prediction. And also, maybe I predicted him too.
You're not allowed to do that.
I am allowed to do whatever I want when I put something into a sealed envelope. There are no rules anymore.
Wow. All right, well, I will take your word for it, TJ. I'm assuming you are correct. And in the meantime, I'll cast some Hearthstone. We have Death Rattle Hunter versus Mid-Range Hunter. Now, this Mid-Range Hunter is not secret dependent. It is pretty beast-centric, and that gives it a lot more consistency to its curve. But missing that Dire Maul or Spring Paw on turn 1 means that the Cracking Raisin Maul is a lot weaker. So this is a much slower start, which probably will allow Jinsoo an opportunity to really evaluate how he wants to map this out. Does he want to coin out a way to contest this, the Scavenging Hyena through the Spider Bomb, just to make sure that no Spring Ball can wreck him? Or does he want the Devilsaur and set up for a better board in the future?
The problem with the Devilsaur Egg is that he doesn't have an activator at all.
Well, he did. He threw it away.
He did, but he threw it away. But coining this out means that he basically gives up 3 mana to not really do anything. And Roger's just gonna...
well, look at Roger's hand. He has 11 power on board and 2 kill commands. That's 21 by my count over the course of 2 turns. This is gonna hurt a lot.
Oh, yeah.
A lot. As you can look at the road to the top 8, Jinsoo taking down a lot of established players, Samuel Tsao, Citizen Napa, Glory, all players who have been to a championship or gone very far in HCT. And of course, Aljiru is also competing right now for a spot in the Winter Championship. This flanking strike, does it hit the Scavenger? It does! That is a big deal.
Well, unfortunately,
well,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because he's still
Jinsoo's
dead anyway.
very dead on turn 5.
I was hoping that a draw could have saved him, but I don't really think of too many things that could outside of a flanking strike. And I think it all comes down to like Jinsoo getting a little greedy here, saying, you know what, maybe I'm just gonna coin out this Devilsaur Egg. That didn't do anything, TJ.
Nope. I think even the mind control tech, if you see that fast of a start, it wasn't even that fast. If you see a start at all, this deck just needs to survive. And so I feel like coining out even mind control tech could have been really good in that situation. But
yeah, I agree. I think mind control. I like mind control tech better than the other 2 options.
Yeah,
because it still survived past a Spring Paw.
exactly.
And it would require like Timberwolf and Spring Paw, which your opponent only kept 1 card, which they didn't play on turn 1. So pressure can put on, but does kind of lose to some aggressive strategies, most notably if it can't beat Even Warlock, Jinsoo will be in trouble. Now, on the flip side, Roger's Even Warlock has bad matchups against everything except Cube Warlock. So I think that's going to be the head-to-head to pay attention to as we get close to that. But if Roger's able to sneak a win right here, right now, and go up 2-0, I would have to say that Roger's the overwhelming favorite, like 90-95% plus to take the series.
Yeah, it's a lot of times in Conquest, because players are building targeted strategies, there's usually one weak point in the lineup, and it's not often Even Warlock specifically, because how many people target Even Warlock? It's mostly people targeting a specific archetype, but in this specific match, this Even Warlock, despite Roger being overall favored in the series as a whole, as far as matchups are concerned, like you said, Even Warlock has some of the weaker matchups, so gotta look to that. But I do have faith in Jinsoo's Control Priest, as long as they can get through that early game, because Even Warlock is tapping so aggressively, keeping their life total low. You can see some pretty early wins by the Control Priest if they're able to survive enough to get to the Psychic Scream, followed up with Shattering Anduin to take out some big threats, and then some Mind Blasts and some hero powers to end the game.
Yeah, I just gotta say though that this is already looking like a fiery hand from Roger. He's got double Twilight Drake, which is extremely problematic to deal with. And if Jinsoo continues to put on pressure, things like Hook Reaver will be closer than you might think. And this first 4-9, already a little tricky to deal with, but Jinsoo does have that Twilight Acolyte, man.
Yeah, and what's the pick? Was that second Twilight Acolyte? Wow. Okay, well,
Sure.
Twilight Acolyte is a very crucial card to stopping early big threats from Roger. Often, if the Even Warlock plays a Mountain Giant early on in the game, Twilight Acolyte can completely stop an tracks and also present a counter threat to push 8. An 8/4 is very threatening. Way more threatening than a 2/8, it turns out.
Yeah, very much so. And I wonder, if Jinsoo in his mind is going to also start accounting for what possible removal tools can Roger leverage from this position. Does he want to play around Hellfire by attacking the 3/2 into the Twilight Drake, or is he just going to go all out aggressive? And I don't know if he has the cards to necessarily back up this aggression, which is why I even think about it. I wouldn't really mind in most cases because it seems to be a pretty solid choice to go face, but it's one of those things to think about. It's like, well, do I give my opponent a Defile opportunity? Do I give him a Hellfire opportunity?
Well, that card picked up from Roger is a definitely a key card to note against Priest specifically also, because Priests tend to have big setup turns for things like Psychic Scream or Mass Hysteria. Now, Jinso, I don't believe, has Mass Hysteria in his lineup. He does not. But if you can develop a board and then drop Nerubian Raveler going into a Psychic Scream turn, it can really throw off the Priest game plan and often allow you to win the game. And in fact, on ladder recently, I've been playing a double Nerubian Unraveler.
Wow, really?
Warlock, and it is sick, Dan, because sometimes they expect the first Nerubian Unraveler, and then they set up for the 9-mana Psychic Scream, and then you drop the second one.
You're the worst kind of person.
And they can't do anything. I also play Mojo Master Zihi as well. So with my 2 Nerubian Unravelers on board, then I just hit him with the Zihi, call it a day.
God, do you play Skulking Geist in that lineup too?
No, I don't. There's too many 6-drops.
No such thing. But I know what you're saying. I think there's nothing to do here besides the Twilight Drake. I don't like a Hellfire in this position. The Defile only removes a few points on board, and you might need it the following turn. Now, Jinsoo sees a Twilight Drake that got roped out. Why was that turn so hard? And that is what's going through his mind at the moment, because his plays are fairly obvious. He has Twilight Acolyte and Fire Tree Witch Doctor, things that fill the curve, and maybe he works in his hero power instead of utilizing one of those minions, whatever. But the important thing is, why would Roger take so long to hesitate? And I think it's because Roger is holding those removal tools. If I was Jinsoo's position, this is what I'm thinking. So what's the best way to play around those removal tools? If possible. I don't know if you can, because based off the way the Twilight Drakes are statted, unless you pick up Silence with this spell, well, he doesn't pick it up, but unless you picked up Silence, there's no way to easily deal with any of the Twilight Drakes, in which case it's most likely going to be a Defile turn set up here, and Jinsoo's going to lose his board. Or a Hellfire, like a Hellfire or Defile.
Yeah, that was a big decision point for Jinsoo, and it really is an indication of where he thinks he is in the game right now and what his main win condition is. Mass Hysteria is a fantastic card and one that he does not have access to in his deck. If he thinks that he's going to fall behind at all, Mass Hysteria is the pickup to try and buy time to Shadow Reaper Anduin. But he realized, I'm putting him at 11. I have 2 Natural Mind Blasts in my deck and 2 Shadow Visions. I can pick up Mind Blasts in my deck.
I mean, he's just got a pretty straightforward Defile here with the Plated Beal, and so you double trade into the Tar Creeper. There's a 1 health with the Tar Creeper, a 2 health with the Wild Pyromancer, a 3 with the Plated Beetle, and the 4 with the Twilight Acolyte. Your Twilight Drakes will end up being, 2 6s minus 5, so 2 1s. That's not a great feeling, though. So you end up having very mediocre plays afterwards. Would you life tap too in this position? Probably not, right? It's just too much risk to just go down to
double Mind Blast
to 12.
Yeah, well, no, because you gain the health, with the Plated Beetle. So honestly, well, he does have threats lined up. Like next turn, if he thinks he's going to play Vulgar Homunculus, it makes the tap less appealing because he knows he's going to take even more damage, and have another turn beyond that to play one of those spell stones that he has in his hand. So I think he has what he wants already. I don't think he needs to life tap since he has multiple turns mapped out.
It's true.
Okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't think you know, a lot of people might, of course, look at that and say, why would you draw a card last? That's like the exact opposite of what you want to do. But I think it doesn't really change the play. I do like digging for it because ultimately, I feel like Roger can't win unless he picks up Blood Reaver Gul'dan. One of the things about Even Warlock is that it takes so much time. Like, if they don't win the game through like a turn 3 Mountain Giant or like a Twilight Drake that just stays on the board forever, what ends up happening is Priest just keeps removing things one at a time, especially when they're playing things like Crowd Roasters and whatnot to help remove these big threats on curve, which Jinsoo does not have the dragon, so this is kind of a big draw coming up for him. Okay. He doesn't have it, but the point is that Roger's threats will continue to be checked, and eventually they're going to get to the point where it comes down to Shadow Reaper Anduin and threatening your life total, and Blade Reaver Gul'dan is your main way to not only stay alive, but also counter pressure by having actual board presence.
Yep.
Do you like to play with fire?
And this actually works out okay, because had Jinsoo played Crowd Roaster, Shadow Reaper Anduin would have also killed it in the process. Yes. So it's not the end of the world that he couldn't hit a 7/7 with 7 damage.
Yeah. And Roger knows that Jinsoo is coming up on that Shadow Reaper Anduin turn. He's seen a card in the far left. And picks up Blood Reaver Gul'dan and is at a reasonable life total. Well, that life total can go down very quickly, and there's still 3 turns before Blood Reaver Gul'dan is going to be able to come out, and even then, it's only 5 life gain against the deck that can easily do 5 damage with the Shadow Reaper Anduin hero power. So now it's about finding that time to get there, because he's not going to win with minion pressure, doesn't feel like. Nerubian Unraveler, though, Dan.
Yeah, this is the time to play the Nerubian Unraveler for sure, and probably the Swamp Boost. You want maximum damage to pressure. The thing about Jinsoo is that it wasn't like he was going to do too much anyway, or he wasn't going to do much else anyways. That Primordial Drake draw was massive. Now Jinsoo has an opportunity to get this Crowd Roaster out in hero power.
But is it worth it to Psychic Scream now and then follow up with whatever threat comes down with Crowd Roaster to try and get the edge? Because if you Crowd Roaster now, you still have minions on. You still have a minion on board. A Spellstone would swing the turn even more and allow Roger to play something else.
Yeah, you only have. Wait, hold on. So Mind Blast, hero power, hero power, Mind Blast, hero power, Mind Him, hero power. That'd be 13 over the course of 2 turns. The hero power the phase. But if his opponent healed for any point of life, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Jinsoo actually did have 13 damage over the course of 2 turns if he Mind Spiked the face instead of the 3/2. But you know, there's a lot of ways they can heal. They can gain armor, they can use Rune Brewer, they can even Spellstone again. So Jinsoo didn't want to go for something super greedy in this position, I think.
Your magic shall not save.
Or perhaps he was hoping that Roger would life tap and develop really aggressively.
Yeah.
Kind of lure him into his false sense of safety. Jinsoo just removing. Primordial Drake comes down. And then now Roger has that Blood Reaver Gul'dan. We had a Hooked Reaver die. Homunculus is on the board.
Was there 2 homunculi played?
I believe so.
So, yeah. So now...
Oh boy. So this is kind of what the game has started setting itself up for. It's, can the Warlock handle the Control Priest pressure? And, I mean, look at Jinsoo just playing so meticulously for the board.
Well, he realizes that with Blood Reaver Gul'dan down, you're really not going to get through that much health unless you're Shadow Visioning both Mind Blasts in your deck twice and can go for that single turn 22. And so he realized that his only way to win is going to be to push through minion damage some way or another. And even throwing out the Divine Hymn just to heal that Primordial Drake back up and fit in an extra hero power. And I can imagine this one's going to go to face. Unless he just wants to fight for board again and make sure, but the Primordial Drake will trade into the Vulgar Homunculus regardless next turn. Not many real ways to chew through that amount.
Yeah, now Roger's kind of in a spot where things like Hooked Reaver and Mountain Giant might get stranded a lot longer than he would like it to. But the important thing for Roger is that he hero powers every turn he can with Siphon Life because he knows the burst potential is really high. Twilight Drake picked up for Jinsoo. That's pretty much the most average minion he can get right now. He has Psychic Stream, so he doesn't have to feel too bad about extending onto the board and then letting his opponent overwhelm him. Because right now, if he plays Twilight Drake and Hero Powers in between it, he's going to lose the board. But that's okay, because he has Psychic Scream. But he needs to map out his damage, because he has Holy Fire, Mind Blast, double Mind Blast, which is 15 one turn. And he has, of course, the Mind Blast Hero Power weaves in for 16. So if he weaves this in throughout the course of the next 2 turns, he has 25 damage, but his opponent's going to go up to 27.
I also saw this in Alex Straz in his deck, so that could be a big difference maker when counting the burst. But can Jinsoo wait until that happens? He has Psychic Scream. Is there, this is crazy thought, is there ever a world where he just goes for Mind Blast now and tries to set up for a Mind Blast top deck? He can use 16 this turn and then to be able to fit in 12 next turn, 28.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the Holy Fire now anyways, because yes, your opponent is going to go up to 18 and you only have 16, but Jinsoo also has another Mind Blast in the deck right now.
Yeah.
So there is a possibility that he might win right here, right now. Plus, he doesn't want to shuffle a Twilight Drake into his opponent's board. So, or sorry, into his opponent's deck. He'd rather have it as an opportunity to threaten his opponent. So, and also, if he picks up Dragon Synergy like Crowd Roaster, triple Mind Blast.
There it is.
19 damage.
19 damage. And Jinsoo, I was thinking, you set up for a Mind Blast top deck to win the game. Instead of going for the Alex Straz game plan,
I like it a lot.
Understanding its win condition, because the longer this game goes with Blood River Gul'dan, the less chance he has to win, because he can wait until Alex Straza, but his hand doesn't fit that game plan at all.
Roger is so offended by what he just saw. It can feel like even Paladin. Oh wow, he keeps the Wild Pyromancer early on. That's how much he values having that early game board.
Yeah, 2-drops are good.
So the reason why I say that it's tricky is because this matchup can seem so one-sided for the even Paladin up until Death Rattle Hunter locks the door by playing things like a Witcher Grizzly that you can't get past.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes a question of has the even Paladin done enough damage where things like Equality can end the game? Or will they even have the Equality to even have a chance to stay in the game if Death Rattle Hunter turns the corner and plays things like Katharina?
Tracking on turn 1 is always so difficult to evaluate. Because on one hand, you know the matchup and you've seen your opening hand, so you know what makes up for the weaknesses of your hand, and you know the win condition in the matchup. But when faced with 2 or potentially 3 very similar options, and not being able to know what the game state will be like in a few turns when you can play that card, it's very difficult to make a choice. And out of those 3 options, I would have thought that Hunter's Mark was the least likely to be picked.
Oh.
Whoa.
I was thinking, yeah, so originally what I thought about was Stitch Tracker, because based off the way his hand looked, I thought coin Stitch Tracker, look for a Devilsaur Egg, then like play Devilsaur Egg on 3, keep your options to either Flanking Strike or play dead on 4, and then curve into Zilliax. So I thought that was kind of what it was leaning towards, but obviously Stitch Tracker has a lot of ways it can discover things that aren't great, like all the beasts you want to recruit. If you discover like King Crush, Katharina, and Charge Devilsaur, it's like, well, those are like all the cards I want later in the game. I don't really need it. Oh, sorry, apologies. He doesn't have Charge Devilsaur, he has Savannah Highmane, but it's still the same thing functionally.
Yeah. Also, Stitch Tracker is kind of like a second tracking in a way. It can fit the game state, so it allows you to reset and look for something that you're more confident in selecting based on the game state on turn 4, turn 5. So, I don't know. It's just an interesting choice, but Jinsoo's... Hey!
Doesn't need that Stitch Tracker anyways, because he has the Devilsaur Egg. That said, Jinsoo has a couple plays available. First, he's going to identify the secret, which is Noble Sacrifice. Loses this Prince of Kelsa. But what's important about this egg is that it's a 1/4. And this ends up being a huge payoff for Jinsoo, because now this Devil's Aware can fight and doesn't have to worry about actually cracking it open in the future.
Yeah. Also, he's got a few great turns lined up. Flanking Strike next turn, or even Hunter's Mark could be good to allow the Devil's Egg to attack into, say, a Blessing of King's minion. And then you can follow that up with maybe a 3-drop that you pick up, or even tracking into something for the future. Ziliak's just a great card. Allows for a big board swing with a health swing as well, which is important when you're facing decks that are obviously to beat down the matchup, which East Paladin for sure is.
Look at how important that 1/1 buff is on the Devil's Egg that stops the idea of Corpse Taker being very strong. You know, Corpse Taker could have protected the board, but when there's 2 sources of attacks, one of them being a 1/4, Corpse Taker's a lot weaker. And now Jinsoo can fight back pretty reasonably through a Flanking Strike right now and just force Roger to utilize his True Silver Champion again. But the thing is, Corpse Taker then becomes more free to drop onto the board, which then gets answered by Ziliak's.
Yeah.
Because of the 1-attack Devil's Egg. So this ends up panning out really well.
Devil's Egg is just...
It's really annoying.
And even if you trade into it, one, you're giving Jinsoo a free 5/5 in a world where he doesn't have an activator.
Is that the nuts, TJ? Drawing Spellbreaker on a buff Devil's Egg?
Spellbreaker's good, but Spellbreaker also has a lot of very good targets in the matchup. You have Spider Bombs, you have Kathrena, you have Witchwood Grizzly if you need to push through, you have Cubes. There's so many good Spellbreaker targets in the deck, but this deck relies on having a board and holding it to win.
Hello?
And so if you don't play it now and that Devil's Egg comes back to bite you, which it will because it has 1 attack.
Yeah, so let's say that he plays Corpse Taker, kills off this this wolf, then the Ziliak's plus the Devil's Egg ruins his Corpse Taker, and then there's a 5/5 and a 3/2, and your opponent also gained back 6 life at least.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Spellbreaker accomplishes something somewhat similar, except that your opponent doesn't have a 5/5. So this is kind of Roger saying, I don't think you have a Ziliak's because it's a 1-up, and you don't have another Flanking Strike. And, you know, Roger, I also kind of agree with this too, because in the end, even Paladin is not supposed to play super reactive. It's supposed to play proactive. And in the, like, if you are constantly in a position where you're just playing a little bit slow onto the board, by the time things like Kathrena hit the board, or sorry, get played, you're just going to be super far behind.
Yeah.
So I agree with Roger's idea here, even though if it didn't work out. It looks bad right now, but at the same time, I don't think you can blame him for that logic.
No, I don't think so either. It was either second Flanking Strike or Ziliak's that punished him, and having seen one, both those being 1-ups in the deck, definitely, like you said, don't blame him for that play. It just sort of gets punished, or it has to make a reactive play this turn. And now Jinsoo has 1 shot. To
One
seize
opportunity.
So the saying goes. Ooh.
So Terrascale Stalker, obviously, has great synergy with things like the Spider Bomb and even Houndmaster Shaw. If you're able to get like a death on the board and you play Terrascale Stalker with Flanking Strike and all those other things. But Deathstalker Rexar is also, you know, one of the strongest cards in Hearthstone right now. So,
And
what do you play for now, or do you play for the very far future?
well, I don't even think Deathstalker Rexar is the very far future, because it also acts as a great removal tool combined with the Hunter's Mark going into turn 7.
That's true.
It's not initiative, but if you look at the way the board state is panning out, then you're going to play a Houndmaster Shaw this turn, and Roger's going to have full initiative to do what he wants. And then a Hunter's Mark plus Houndmaster, or Hunter's Mark plus Deathstalker Rexar allows you to potentially clear off a board and have a Houndmaster Shaw uncontested if it wasn't cleared off.
Yeah. I do like this. I do like the Deathstalker Rexar, also because even Paladin does end up struggling with their resources in the late stage of the game. And if Deathstalker Rexar can just keep play 1 threat too many, even Paladin falls too far behind. The Sunkeeper Tarim draw, massive pickup here from Roger. And now it's going to push aggressively one more time here. And how difficult is it for Jinsoo now that it doesn't have things like his Terrascale Stalker or that flanking strike? But with Deathstalker Rexar, it doesn't actually accomplish that much. And if he utilizes Hunter's Mark now and his opponent plays the Lich King, he is going to be in a terrible spot.
But if he doesn't use it now, then he leaves a Sunkeeper Terram on board, which is not only hitting him for 3, but also protecting anything else from being able to be killed. So kind of has to go for it and hope that 1, he gets some Jin zombie selections, or 2, Roger recklessly plays into mind control tech territory and he steals a very impactful minion. And we'll see if Roger actually nods towards mind control tech and forgoes the hero power here. It's a very reasonable choice considering this is open decklist. He knows that mind control tech exists, and that's why, despite the only thing left for Roger to do this turn is hero power, he's going to think long and hard about it.
Yeah, he doesn't need to, because if he attaches Blessing of Kings and gets through with the damage, he'll have 22 anyways. Jinsoo needs a taunt minion. Or like a rush. Okay, he got a taunt and a rush opportunity here. It depends on what he picked first. He might have to pick the Massive just for the speed. And it looks like he did. In fact, it's a 5/5 rush. That is perfect to snipe its Wind Fury Harpy. And Jinsoo absolutely needs to kill it off now because the threat of Blessing of Kings will end this game.
Still in a very rough position.
Yeah, this is exactly what Even Paladin likes to do, which is keep a little bit on the board and add the pressure ever so slightly. But Roger has acknowledged the threat of mind control tech, so will he continue to do the same thing and play around it by trading into this 5/1? I think so. You can split the difference here. You can Corpse Taker, you can play the Blessing of Kings on one of the 3/1s, trade into the 5/1, and then go in hero power and go phase. If you feel like you don't want to do it... Oh, okay.
Ooh.
I wasn't expecting this.
Well, I wasn't expecting the 1/1 to be played is what I wasn't expecting. He played around mind control tech last turn, and in a very similar situation this turn, played the 1/1. But
wow.
Katharina, the only beast he has left in his deck, I believe, is Witchwood Grizzly, and it's buffed by the Prince Kell set.
Yeah, but he also has the Spellbreaker.
Yep, the Spellbreaker, Blessing of Kings, and that'll do it.
Death Rattle Hunter is struggling, and you know Roger's shaking his head because I think he also knows that this could have potentially gone really badly too. He barely gets over the hump, but that mind control tech possibility was really scary. And even Paladin gets over the hump, which means that it's going to be even Warlock. That's all that remains between Roger and a spot in the Winter Championship. But man, is he stressed.
He is very...
Blood Reaver Gul'dan himself. We'll find out what happens as Death Rattle Hunter up against even Warlock. How does this matchup traditionally go, TJ?
Well, it all depends on that early game. If even Warlock sticks an uncontested threat, it's lights out for Death Rattle Hunter. They do have a decent amount of removal tools available to them. Hunter's Mark combined with Candle Shot, Spider Bomb with Play Dead, or Terrascale Stalker. There's a decent amount, but an early Mountain Giant can be the death of this deck. But on the other hand, if Roger whiffs on some of those early drops and plays Twilight Drake or a 4/4 Shroom Brewer or Hooked Reaver and doesn't find those big threats, a board full of 5/5s can end the game for the Even Warlock in a big way. What are you looking at me like that for Frodan? You just threw down your pen in exasperation and gave me a look of anguish.
Because your explanation of this matchup was so poignant and accurate that I was mad that I was not able to deliver the same level of analysis as you. You're too good at your job, TJ, and it's not because my tablet ran out of power and I forgot to charge it.
I was waiting
It doesn't
for
turn
the
on.
pseudo punchline.
You see, it's
there is a sad, empty battery.
I had all these notes that I had prepared on it, man.
Well, now you're gonna have to. Well, how does the saying go?
I'm naked.
Fly into the seat of your pants.
Yes, exactly.
There you go.
Well, how would you know, TJ? You act like you wear pants.
Yeah, I'm on the shorts train lately.
What happened to this board? A second ago,
Look at my analysis. It was so spot on.
there was just a little fetus on the board, and now all of a sudden they're all grown up right before our very eyes.
That's right.
2 devil swords. It turns out they were twins.
But if you think about it in a real world kind of context, it doesn't make any sense.
Must
Because that's a devil sword egg.
Right.
And he
hatched an actual dinosaur.
you're basically scientifically removing and cloning at the same time the dinosaur within the egg
Yeah.
and using some type of
computing.
weird chemical to grow them into full-size dinosaurs.
That's just how
Immediately.
the gestation period works for dinosaurs. Did you not get the birds and bees talks?
No, I didn't. But I mean, I did get an attempt at it, but it all went crashing down when I got stung by a bee and didn't
Look.
get pregnant.
When a terror scale stalker loves a devil sword egg very much, these things happen.
The Terrascale Stalker takes a knife to the egg, rips out a devil sword, and places it onto the board.
Plays dead.
Oh God.
Yeah, that is a lot of 5/5s. Jinsoo has ways to leverage his board position. Flanking strike, candle shot pickup actually is fantastic just to squeeze in that extra mana usage efficiently. So he has a 5/5 trade-in. He has a flanking strike and a candle shot. That's 9 damage by my count. That clears the board. But I think Roger is setting up for a possibility that he may pick up a Hellfire or Defile to help stabilize the board, because he traded into that Devastator egg hoping that Jinsoo not only wouldn't be able to put game-ending damage, but that he'd be able to follow up by removing things, because there's going to be a 1-health Devastator at the end of it.
Yeah, he's basically just hoping. Yeah, because it's dead on board, right? The Doomsayer is dead on board. It's just to block damage in order to set up for, like you said,
Right.
a piece of removal off the top.
Yeah, and this is a great response by Jinsoo. So instead of, instead of getting too greedy and extending even further onto the board, chooses to use Defender of Argus in this spot to make that Hellfire Defile setup a lot more difficult. And he's dead. What?
But your world is still doomed.
Wow. I feel like we didn't even talk about Hearthstone for the entirety of that game.
We really didn't.
And I also want to point out that
Give you this. Before the series began, TJ, what did we say? We said Cube Warlock and Even Warlock are going to be the 2 decks to focus on, specifically if they go head-to-head, because it is the matchup that we know will often decide this series in terms of its statistical average. Now, that said, Even Warlock is pretty favored because of that early game threat of Mountain Giants. However, Jinsoo is on that coin, so if he can get to that Mountain Giant first, maybe he'll have the first mover advantage.
Yep, but I see a Mountain Giant. I also see an Acidic Swamp Ooze, which is sort of the bane of Cube Warlock, because the engine, I'm going to try and make a car reference here. The Skull of the Minari is the pistons of the engine, and the demons are the gasoline.
Oh, for some reason, when you said
And the cube,
when you said Pistons, I was really hoping that you would I thought you were talking about the Detroit Pistons.
and the cube is the NOS.
Okay.
So you get the pistons firing away with the gasoline, and then at some point in the game, you hit the NOS, Dan.
Where's the Nitro?
That's the
That's the NOS?
That's the NOS.
Okay.
And when you hit the NOS, it's game over. I know that because I watched the Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
1 through 2 Fast.
Good. That should be mandatory viewing before every time we cast HCT. We should just start watching Vin Diesel, the Fast and Furious crew.
Yeah.
This Doomsayer setup, by the way, is the nice silver medal, if you will. If you can't present the threat, you deny your opponent's threat. And good thing he did, too, because we were focused on whether or not Jinsoo can provide a threat of his own. And he picked up an interesting card that he included, which is the Corpse Taker. It's a one-of in his deck. Now, Jinsoo instead takes the initiative with the Spirit Singer Umbra because, well, he knows that Roger doesn't have a convenient way to remove it. And so finally, this Mountain Giant comes down. Jinso does not have that possessed lackey, though.
But he does have a Faces Manipulator. And specifically, if Roger were to play Sun Fury Protector here, Faces Manipulator is basically just remove the 8/8.
Yeah.
And also protect your Spirit Singer Umbra outside of Roger using removal, which passes initiative over to Jinsoo. So this isn't looking too terrible. But again, the problem is Roger's going to be the one asking the questions. He's going to be one playing the big threat every turn. And Jinsoo's going to be on the back foot. Now that gets really complicated once Void Lords start to come into the picture. Because outside of Spellbreaker, Roger doesn't have great ways to push through that, and then they get brought back by Blood River Gul'dan. And in the late stages of the game, Jinsoo's deck just packs a little bit more of that punch because of Cube and Dark Pact and extra damage from hand. So it gets quite tricky. It's a very weird matchup. Because while there's a lot of similar cards in each deck, there's big differences in game plan.
Well, game plan for Roger seems fairly straightforward. Now that he has Acidic Swamp who's to shut down any Skull of Minari opportunity, he can just develop big into this board. Trade, play the Plated Beetle, and attack the face. Cube Warlock is not like even Warlock. You don't have to worry about their 15 health, mark where they can play a 7/7. Oh, actually, he has 2 Acidic Swamps. That's what I'm talking about. You can just play
Yes, he
one.
does.
There you go. Does makes the file math a little bit easier though for Jinsoo if he needed it. Cobalt Librarian.
Cobalt Librarian into Cube. Summon 2 1/1s. Hell yeah.
Oh, a Spellstone. So now you can remove. Actually, a Spellstone just sets up a Defile. He Spellstones the 8/8 becomes an 8/3, and then that's a clean Defile. But it does lose his own Spirit Singer Umbra.
I think you.
Cube the
So many possibilities.
Is there any alternative? I mean, he doesn't have to do that right now because he has Spellstone and Defile. He can sit on that and.
Well, he could just Spellstone and trade in Spirit Singer Umbra. Then Rogers faces an interesting scenario where he has to either trade in his Acidic Swamp Ooze into Cobalt Librarian or give Jinsoo a good Defile train.
Well, I was just thinking of, what if you just played like Corpse Taker?
He could play Corpse Taker.
Problem is, Corpse Taker doesn't have lifesteal because the Ziliax was drawn. So maybe he just plays Ziliax instead because it's more mana efficient. So he can trade this, play Ziliax. Whoa! The cube on the Cobalt Librarian!
I said that as a joke! Don't listen to me!
So if a Defile comes down, well, we still be able to deal with the Mountain Giant. So yeah, that ends up being okay. Well, if you think about it in a very abstract concept, it's kind of like a very miniature version of Savannah Jaime in a way.
Yeah,
it's like a reasonably mid-sized minion that summons 2 attack minions. That hurts. That hurts a lot. Did Jinsoo get a little too cute here with these plays?
Oh, he's got a Spellstone that's buffed up to 5. And he has Ziliax waiting in the hand. I would think that Ziliax would come out this turn, most likely. More expensive. You can deal with the Mountain Giant in both scenarios. There's not a Defile clear.
No, he has the 1 from the Sunfree Protector. He has a 2 if he trades in with the Mountain Giant. And then if he Spellstones, the Drake's at 4, so it's not a clear from what I see initially.
He could Spellstone Defile and just keep his cube on the board.
Okay, that works too. Yeah,
go face.
Yeah, Spellstone, Defile, and then
just hit.
I guess hit face at that point because your opponent can life tap into. Actually, you don't want to hit them below because then don't they get double Hooked Reaver? I like this the best, I guess, because if you hit them below 15 and they have 2 Hook Reavers, that's when you're in a world of pain.
Yeah.
That being said, Hellfire Hooked Reaver looks really juicy here.
Yes,
if you're Roger.
But Spellstone Defile is a clear again.
Pitiful
You're so close. You feel the taste of the Winter Championship berth. Double Doom Guard with no Skull, but Skull wouldn't matter anyways.
Just be checked by the Acidic Swamp Ooze. And
Okay.
Roger knows.
What if you are insane enough to Doom Guard and then Defile and then coin into Blood River Gul'dan? You discard the other half of your deck.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, he's not that insane. It was just a suggestion, you know? You never know, but it's one of those things where, like, if you're desperate enough, sometimes you have to go for these crazy plays where you have to hope that the discard at random.
Howdy there, Mr. Lich King.
Yeah, it's really strong. Into a Blood River Gul'dan. He had a few demons die already. Double Mountain Giant, Twilight Drake, Lich King, Hooked Reaver. That's just the recipe for success in this matchup.
Yeah, but he's also drawn through 2/3 of his deck already, so that's pretty likely at this point, and Jinsoo does not have an answer in his deck to this outside of Doomguard, coin, Doomguard.
He would have to coin first to increase his chances to land it, right? Because you don't want to discard coin or the second Doom Guard. So you want to coin double Doom Guard.
Yeah, but then you increase the chances of discarding the Doomguard.
Yeah, but actually, it's true. You could play Corpse Taker for the taunt.
And just have a Doomguard and a Corpse Taker on the board.
It just feels so unreliable, though.
And no matter which way you slice it, ooh, 1 mana away. And Jinsoo is, he's very dead. Corpse Taker doesn't even have Divine Shield. It doesn't have anything except for Taunt.
Is he?
And with that, Roger sits back in his chair, plays the Hellfire, and has booked his ticket to the Winter Championship. His first berth on the ACT global stage will be his last chance in the Year of the Raven. Congratulations, Roger.
From the APAC region this time on day one is a player that I've become more and more impressed with as time goes on, and just the quality of his play as well. So Glory does find himself up against it in this one, but it's going to be this feels like kind of a classic throwback matchup. This is something that we saw a little bit in the past where players were more debating which of these two Warlock decks was the way to go. It's even Warlock going up against the Cube Warlock. How do you feel about this one?
Well, yeah, I think you're going to know my thoughts on it. I detest even Warlock right now. It has been doing well over this tournament, though, and a large part of that is because of the aggressive lineups just weren't a force in this tournament to be reckoned with. You know, in this particular matchup, I do feel like if Glory's not able to land an early Mountain Giant and get some damage rolling, that's a tough one to cut. And here early on, we see Jinsoo with Skull the Minari, has Doomguard, has Faceless Manipulator, has Prince Taldaram, has Zilliax, has the Spellstone.
Has Ooze on Glory's side, and that's going to put a big crimp on the whole thing. And I do, personally, I'm kind of with you in that I don't necessarily see even Warlock as a powerhouse in the current metagame, competitive or ladder-wise. But I have always felt like this particular matchup is quite heavily even Lock's favored, because they can just put up so much pressure so much quicker than Q-Block, especially since they received the 1-mana nerf to Possess Lackey a long while back. And then that big Egyptian God card to adopt another admirable. I'm gonna be filling up with these by the end of these 3 weeks. In terms of Skull and Minari, Evenlock's one of the best decks at checking that, because quite often they do even play 2 copies of Acidic Swamp Ooze sometimes.
And Glory definitely has those 2 copies of it. I think that is one of the big kickers to the deck, is if you have pressure backed up by an Acidic Swamp Ooze, you're the one who gets to drive the tempo thanks to your own Doomsayer, which Glory also has 2 copies of. And Jinsoo's not able to land his own. It is a major difference in the match. You know, I think a lot of times it is the early tempo plays that really dictate the match, and that advantage, in my opinion, is to Glory. It's that when Jinsoo's able to succeed off of one of these big plays, that's when things can really change. But here, it does not look like that's changing. It looks like it's all Glory in this game.
Right. Yeah, Jinsoo might just have to double Doomsayer here just to try and get some kind of alleviation, but even then that's checked by so many options from Glory that he then doesn't have a plan on the follow-up.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to build a game plan against Evenlock, because a lot of the time when you're losing with Q-Block, you can get into this mentality of, all right, I just have to wait it out, get to my Void Lord period of the game, and then that will stabilize for me. But again, quite often 2 copies of Spellbreaker in even lock that can continue to push pressure through those.
Yeah, I just feel like for Jinsoo, this situation's one that's going to continue to get out of hand. You know, I'm looking at this is a very interesting play. I actually really like this from Jinsoo. I was going to move towards a Spellstone turn, but not necessarily to this degree. I was, you know, picturing a follow-up, perhaps. You know, my head was more on Ziliax and no attack, but that's just vulnerable to so many things. You're looking at a Spellbreaker, you know, almost instantly dead on the spot. A Defile Hellfire, you're dead on the spot. So many of those leave you dead in that situation. And here, Jinsoo, I think, has found like a pretty happy medium where this Doomsayer provides a pretty sizable amount of healing. And Glory, considering the Mojo Master's Zihi on this turn, just to deny 1 single mana. Gonna opt for the big boy instead.
Yeah, I think the thought process is reasonable there because Mojo Master would deny the Possess Lackey Dark Pact option, which is, of course, one of the most powerful things that Q-Block can do, but Glory just doesn't care about that. If Doomguard's summoned, no big deal. Doesn't do anything on this board state, running into a 4/6. If Voidlord is summoned, well, Spellbreaker kill you. You know, it's a perfectly reasonable setup, and by doing it this way, he puts 19 power onto the board, which means potentially if Possess Lucky Dark Pact comes down, it's only the healing from the Dark Pact that's even keeping Jinsoo alive.
Yeah, and he was really trying to play to, you know, an out in some capacity in this turn for Jinsoo was, and it's just, you know, that's a lot of what Q-Block is about, is when you get in the bad situations, they're often quite bad situations, but it feels like you almost always have a way to get out of the situation. It's just very dependent on drawing the picture-perfect card almost every single time. And here, you know, maybe fairly close to that with another Spellstone, but you got to picture what the follow-up again is to that. A lot of times you just have to continue to make plays that are very desperate and strange-looking if you end up losing the tempo. But the goal of this deck, you know, in an ideal sense, is to not lose tempo. Right. Much easier said than done.
Yeah, Spellstone into like Ziliax Taldaram on the following turn. Question mark, question mark, question mark, profit. But even then, the profit only comes when your opponent does nothing and the intersecting turns between that. Like, then I can see him fighting back eventually, but even Lock just has so many more hits to keep on coming here.
Yeah, the other thing to note, too, is that Zihi tends to get more powerful as the game moves along. There's a certain point where you deny so much from your opponent that it's such a disruptive gameplay, and they look up and they go, okay, well, I can't beat that situation. But the key, of course, is, you know, being ahead first and foremost. But now we're approaching those turns where you got to think about Lord Godfrey. You have to think about, you know, strange Defile interactions. You have to think about, you know, a pair of things being able to do something about this, and Spellbreaker's just giving Glory so much comfort to push through that it continues to, you know, in my mind, emphasize the importance of being able to drive the tempo. Jinsoo not being able to play Doomsayer to buy the time meant that when Glory landed Ooze, a threat was already down.
Right.
An Ooze against the Skull with no threat? Yeah, you're probably looking at an Ooze and maybe another 2-drop as the opposing threats. Something already down. You know, take 4 and get ready to take 20.
Unity, precision.
This is the Ziliax Taldaram that I called out on the previous turn. Like I said, I could have seen this potentially getting Jinsoo out of trouble if there was just no addition on the interceding turn from Glory, but he's added a 6/6 to the board. Just kind of making a mess of proceedings. Considering the no attacks options, just because it means Glory would have to attack with 2 different minions before Hellfiring to clear them out of the way.
That, and to me, it's, you know, also the fact that Defile's there.
This is best of both worlds, because now Hellfire, he is not just dead to Hellfire, because only the 6/6 would end up connecting.
Yeah, is dead to this combination, as well as Shroom Brewer, the big minion in Hellfire.
And Hellfire
as well. A lot of ways Glory gets out of this one. So.
Right. But the important note is that Jinsoo studied that board state hard, and he found a situation where he was dead to 2 Warlock out of the metagame. Even Paladin as well even has that Ooze, which again has been drawn by Glory. And again, every single game I've seen Jinsoo playing Q-Block, he's had Skull in the opening hand. But that keep of the Ooze from Glory is going to be a huge, huge upside for him as well. I think this one, if I had to make an early prediction, neck on the line, this one could be going all the way to Game 5.
It's also, you know, fairly even principles on the same side, though. It's about keeping Glory off of tempo the turn that you're going into a Skull of Minari and getting oozed. If your opponent doesn't have the presence on board to be able to punish you, it's a different scenario than if they do. So with Glory in this situation, you know, Corpse Taker being drawn, massive threat that you're going to be able to add to board to punish that, and you compound that with the Acidic Swamp Ooze afterwards. To me, that's where this big issue is sitting right now.
Yeah, and this True Silver is kind of the cherry on the sundae where that comes, because this Doomsayer would have potentially locked out the board, given Jinsoo some breathing room. Then maybe he finds a way to contest the Corpse Taker, but this coin True Silver into Corpse Taker curve can now keep full tempo for Glory, and means that he's punishing that Skull of Minari as hard as possible.
And looking at the list for Glory's Even Paladin, 1 copy of Spellbreaker alongside 2 True Silver Champion. Pretty standard stock list outside of that. Jinsoo is a Corpse Taker of his own, but not quite as good.
No.
Not exactly bringing the beats. Pretty standard looking Defile turn.
And again,
Blessing of Kings.
I think Blessing of Kings is one worry, but I think you've also made the really salient point already, which is that Jinsoo wants to deny as much tempo before his Skull turn as possible, so that when he plays his Skull, he's not getting punished very hard, but he is getting punished as hard as he could possibly imagine. There is a Wind-Furied Corpse Taker and an Acidic Swamp Ooze coming into play, and just to add insult to injury, the second copy just comes off the top. Like, hey, I heard Skull of Minari. I showed up. Oh, other Ooze, you've already got this covered? Okay, my bad.
Jinsoo does have some play going on here, though. You know, unlike last game, the minions are a very different size. I'm looking at Ziliax and Prince Talor. I'm not just getting immediately run over, and I'm looking at Lord Godfrey in hand being able to make an impact here. I can see some perhaps get out of this potential on Jinsoo's side.
Sure, but while you are looking down, I am looking up, and I am seeing Spike Rouge Steeds and Blessing of Kings and all kinds of havoc coming through on a Wind Fury minion.
Semantics. Big deal, you take 14.
Yeah.
Big deal. Oh, that Wild Pyro on the other hand, though, I mean, that's probably going to bring
that
the
makes
bacon.
all the difference.
Yep. That is pretty much going to do it. I mean, the Wild Pyro, honestly, even just a pretty significant threat in its own right.
Yep. Snow Gas. Godfrey, not good enough. Only 2 procs, not enough. Taldaram, if only it was a Faceless. It is not.
So many of these spots, I'm looking at this hand and going, wow. A Siphon Soul would be great here. It's Lord Godfrey on the other hand.
Sometimes you just look at these hands and go, wow, Q-Block is greedy. Like,
yes.
it is a really greedy deck.
It very much is. And that honestly, that's one of the reasons I've liked Corpse Taker in this deck so much, is just an attempt at getting less greedy in the grand scheme of things. Jinsoo here, I believe, is fishing for exactly Faceless Manipulator, which is 1 copy of. That would at least provide, you know, some amount of substance on board. As it is, it's heal for 3. And then there's 11, 12, 13, 14 back behind this.
Yeah, he's alive on board, I believe, because he goes to 15 and then down to 14, but the Consecration will have killed him. He could have actually been, Glory could have been a little bit more efficient in terms of his damage there as well. If he used the Consecration to break the Divine Shield. But if it works, it works.
Get the job done. Game 5, as Subtle prophesied in this match.
Yeah, it wasn't the hardest prediction I've ever had to make, looking at the smooth curve into Acidic Swamp Ooze hand on the top, and then Corpse Taker's coming down, beating him up, right as Admirable said, no, I think there's a chance. Boom.
But there was.
14. Take it.
User error required, perhaps, was the caveat to it, but, you know, if that's the out, that's the out. You got to take it. So it's game 5 for Jinsoo and Glory now, and, you know, the weakness of Jinsoo's lineup against this definitely is Cube Warlock, with the 4 copies of Ooze across some aggro decks that are in there.
Yeah, I think so, but now Ooze is not a beast, so Hunter's not going to be slamming it in there anytime soon. But yeah, Jinsoo, I mean, okay, I was about to raise the point, right, of it just crashed into, like, reality for me in the previous game, where I looked at the Q-Block's hand and was just like, this is just such a greedy deck. Like, how can this be succeeding in a metagame that's so full of even paladins and odd rogues and all the hunters that can just rush them down so effectively? But literally, without exaggeration, Jinsoo has drawn Skull every single game we've watched him play Q-Block.
2 of those games might be the reason he loses.
That is true, yes.
You gave away 5 mana. You gave away your coin. Your opponent got tempo. You could make other plays to fight. Instead, you go for the Skull because it's such a high, you know, success when it happens. And here, Jinsoo held on to the Kobold Geomancer even with Spellstone in hand. Holds onto the Doomsayer on turn 2, baits Glory into overextending. Kobold buffed the Spellstone.
That was brilliant. It was brilliant. Yeah, with the Spellstone in hand, the temptation was enormous to just slam the Kobold and get it buffed up, but he understands the shape of boards that he's going to see in the early game from Hunter. It's going to be very often a 1 health minion and a 2 health minion. Oh, sorry, very often a 2 health minion and a 3 health minion. If he sees Dire Mole into Razormaw, for example, if he sees Scavenging Hyena alongside Dire Mole, all of these things are extremely threatening boards that he cannot kill without a 1-proc on his Defile. So goes ahead and holds onto it, gets rewarded, and then Skull comes down and Glory has no acidic options on his side. He just has to pull the trigger and just get going with straight up Damahe.
And I'm not sure this Damahe is going to work. You know, we could talk about the Skull and how good it is all day, but I think that, you know, the pilot in the seat that's driving the deck also has a big impact on that. I think those early plays,
I agree with you.
A big part of Jinsoo being able to capitalize on this Skull maximally. It's tough enough to beat on its own, but now that he's gotten such a brilliant opener to pan out for him, it's like smooth sailing almost from here.
Right.
Kill command picked up for Glory, though, so not a real shortage of damage from hand, but that's what Jinsoo's deck stops. Once it gets rolling,
yeah,
good luck.
I mean, I beg to disagree because he has a shortage of damage from hand because the amount of damage from hand he needs is currently 19. No, scratch that, 24, because he is not hitting face with a minion ever, ever, ever again.
Nope. Maybe some Iron Big Owls would do.
Sure, yeah. If he gets Rexar and a Builder Beast, that is probably what he needs to be looking towards at this point.
Thins all these useless traps out of the deck. You know, there's ways to chew through Void Lord. There's not really ways to chew through 2 Void Lords, though.
No.
And that's on the horizon.
And 2 is a conservative estimate at this point, with Cube and Faceless in hand, and the Possessed Lackey that could potentially pull out the second natural one. I think if Glory only sees 2 Void Lords this game, he can be very, very pleased. Although maybe not. Maybe if he only sees 2 Void Lords, it means he's conceded early enough that he hasn't seen any more.
Ooh, Rexar, pretty prime pickup here. Jinsoo foregoes the attack because of the secret on Glory's side. Does not want to get freezing trapped in that spot, or you know, like a weird poisonous minion from a wandering monster or what have you. Looks like Arthas on the first one. It's getting worse.
Sure is. There's the Venom Strike.
I'm a bit surprised by Jinsoo's quick attack in this spot. I think Venom Strike was actually the most likely trap that Glory would have set in that position.
Mm-hmm.
Freezing Trap wouldn't have made sense because the Skull's going to put it back.
Right.
Wandering Monster makes some sense, but couldn't you test face for that first? Now suddenly the Void Lord's threatened to be killed here. Which tells me that, you know, your second Void Lord, your Possessed Lackey, your Carnivorous Cube, or whatever have you, is probably going to have to get that job done, which I don't think is upsetting Jinsoo that much right now. Enormous lead.
Yeah, having drawn that second Void Lord, you're right, he did have a little bit of a problem for a second there, but now he's drawn the second Void Lord, all of those problems have gone away because even if this board gets dealt with, he has auto Void Lord for 0 mana from hand on the following turn into Umbra Cube. So he can completely rebuild a brand new board from scratch on the following turn if he wants to.
That won't be happening this turn. Board is full.
Yep.
When your board is full, of course, you are not going to be summoning Skull the Minari minions.
Correct.
Good demons are hard to find.
Ooh, and now the Possessed Lackey, I believe, is not pulling anything either.
It gets the note that this is explosive or wandering. And is very interested in just activating the secret right away. I imagine the intent is Hellfire here. Hellfire, Doomsayer comes to mind for me. I think both are often desired due to some of the Build-A-Beast combinations.
Yeah, one definitely seems too easy for your opponent to seize back tempo with kind of any kind of reasonable minion.
That works too.
Well, if this is... I'm very confused by the sequencing this turn. If this was happening, why did the 2/2 not go into one of the 3/3s before he attacked face?
Anticipation of Wandering Monster is what I imagine.
That he wanted to be able to send the 2/2 into the Wandering Monster, have the freedom to do that if he wanted to?
I believe so. I'm not sold on it either. I think Jinsoo's, getting a bit sloppy ahead of himself because of the nature of how this draw has been. It's been so powerful that Jinsoo is slipping up a bit, but you cannot mess around with Build-A-Beast. Like, suddenly a lot of this value has been given away.
Right.
I think Jinsoo firmly should be waiting. But perhaps as Carnivorous Cube, it's the game on mind with Spirit Singer Umbra, Cube, and Dark Pact. Is this just lethal?
Board space, I think, maybe
You could
preventing
create
it.
the board space here.
Right, but that means the 1/3s can't go face beforehand. So how many Doom Guards are you getting?
4 Doom Guards. So there's 2 from this. And then you have this Dark Pact held. So 1 damage off lethal, but it's going to be enough to seize it, I believe.
Right. No, he now gets 2 more, right? If he Dark Packs the cube, yeah, he's exact.
Dark Pact.
It's exact.
So the cube dies, and then you summon
Yep.
2. Wow. Well, that's probably the plan that he had in mind, but what a fortunate timing for that draw. Jinsoo closes it out against Glory 3 games to 2, and that drops Glory down to the lower portion.